If you're here with us today, you might already know that this is my last day as your senior minister. And I was recently elected as field leader for our home organization, which is going to keep me pretty busy going forward. And so although I won't be your senior minister, this is still my spiritual community. I love you all so much, and I plan to stay connected with you as I am able. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we started, about this time, actually, 7 years ago. I had this little inkling, a divine urge about birthing a new CSL in Leesburg, Virginia. I was missing being a part of a CSL since we had moved back to Virginia, and there wasn't a center close to us, a couple hours away. And so you know how the universe works. We're little spiritual broadcasting systems that we draw to us when we have a vision. And so it wasn't long after I had that vision that I met a couple by the name of Jerry and Stephen, and who are here with us today. So I'm happy to see you guys. And Jerry had this same inkling, the same vision, because she had been a part of a CSL in Dallas, and when she came here, she was really missing it. And so it didn't take us very long. We figured out pretty quickly that there might be a divine calling for us. And so following that divine urge, that universal nudge, we ended up in Jerry and Stephen's living room talking about this idea of starting a CSL. And eventually we attracted three more people to join us in that original visioning session. Our beloved Kristen Frangi, who has been with us this whole time. She has the honor of being the only person to have completed the first 2 full terms of our leadership council, because we've only had a council for 6 years, and she's been on it, and she termed out this December. And so we just bless her for her continued support and love. And then we brought in my longtime friend, Deborah Dondelinger, who came down from Maryland, and Melanie Weaver, who was in West Virginia, and she came over, and the 6 of us sat in Jerry and Stephen's living room, and we began to vision. We began to craft a vision statement. And I don't know about you, but I love our vision statement. It still holds just a lot of power for me. It's still fresh to me after 6 years, a little over 6 years. And it's actually to awaken our inherent oneness with divine source, our planet, and each other, and then act knowing oneness matters. It's just so powerful to act from that knowingness. When we awaken to this oneness, this powerful divine source, then how do we go forward? How do we act from that as awareness? If we knew who we are, that we were one, how would we act? How would we go forward? So I've always been inspired by the Oneness Statement that was created by the Humanities Team Global Council back in 2010. I'm not sure if they still use it, but I love it. And it states about oneness. It says, oneness is the energy of love that lies within and connects all life, enabling us to recognize ourselves in everything. Such a powerful statement. It lies within, it connects us with all, and it enables us to recognize ourself in everything. And this is what we do in our teachings right off the bat. The first thing we learn is to recognize the divine presence all around us, everywhere present, and that it lies within us. So my homiletics teacher, homiletics is the art of giving sermons. Dr. Fred Vogt from Mile High in Denver, he always said, never let a talk title get in the way with what you want to say. And so if you came here thinking we were going to have a different talk title, or different talk, I'm not going to let it get in the way with what I have to say. I actually changed the talk title this morning to what I want you to know, because what I want to tell you today is really what I have found to be the most important things, kind of distilling it to what I would love for you to know about our teachings and about ourselves. And so I've just kind of summarized the foundational gifts of our teachings. And so these might not surprise you if you've been listening to me for 7 years or more. But as my mom used to say, I may have told you this story before, but don't stop me because I want to tell it again. So I get the opportunity to tell it again. So the first thing that I want you to know is that there is an expanded understanding of God as universal presence. This is the most important thing when people come into our teachings, to begin to understand that maybe they might have had a limited idea of the divine, of God as separate, or out there looking down, usually a guy, that can be fairly judgmental, or trying to help us if we do the right things, or punishing us if we do the wrong things. And what our teachings really do is bring a sense of relief and freedom. I think I know that was for me to be able to say that, wow, it's not necessarily that limited view isn't necessarily the view of the divine that is true. Dr. Ernest Holmes said that there's a universal mind, spirit, intelligence that is the origin of everything. This universal life and energy finds an outlet in and through all that is energized and through everything that lives. This is the power of this, is that it's out there in the world, and it's an energy to this love energy that moves through all things. And he goes on and he says it spreads itself over the whole universe and shouts at us from every angle. It's telling us it's there, but it can become power to us only when we recognize it as power. That's the beauty of this teaching, is recognizing that power in the present. There's a power in the universe greater than we are, and when we use it, we have power. This understanding can engage us immediately and urge us to move forward. Dr. Holmes says that this power, this presence, is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it is not a question of its willingness nor its ability. It's entirely a question of our receptivity. So there's nothing we need to do but recognize it, to recognize that it is already there. We don't try to figure it out. We don't try to become better. We don't try to do anything. We're just acknowledging it, awakening to it, as our vision says. One of my favorite poems by Rumi is, it talks about this presence that is waiting for us to understand our divinity. And he writes, I have come to drag you out of yourself and take you in my heart. I have come to bring out the beauty you never knew you had and lift you like a prayer to the sky. What a beautiful idea for us to connect to that truth of who we are, to take ourselves out of our narrow understanding of this divine presence and bring it into an expanded awareness. And what happens when we do that is the second thing I want you to know, and that is that you are an expression of this divine source, of this God. That it only makes sense, right? If this divine source is everywhere present and it permeates all things, then you're a part of that. It doesn't permeate all things, except for you over here, except for you little encased being over here. No, it's all of us. It's a divine presence. Ernest Holmes says, whatever is true of the universe as a whole must also be true of the individual as some part of that whole. Whatever is true of the universe must be true of us because we're a part of that whole. Each individual is evolved from the universe as a self-conscious thinking center of living spirit, and inasmuch must, in nature and being, reproduce the universe. We reproduce the universe through who we are, how we express. But boy, we fight that sometimes, right? We really fight against that. And separation, when I very first began in this teaching, I always thought that my calling was to heal the illusion of separation, to heal the illusion of separation between us and God, and between us and each other, and we finesse that in our vision statement to change it to the positive, which we like to do, which is to awaken to our inherent oneness. But we're really awakening to the illusion of separation, because that separation takes so much work. It's not who we are, so it takes a lot of work. Hafiz, this is another one of my favorite poems by Hafiz, and he says, just sit there now. Don't do a thing. Just rest. For your separation from God is the hardest work in the world. We have to work so hard to think we are separate. We never are, but it takes a lot for us to think that. So the great gift of this teaching is to realize that we're not creating this connection. We're not becoming anything. We already are. We're already that divine presence. I love this quote. It's a little long, but it's from Dr. Holmes, and I think it's so powerful. He says, right now, we are as much of the spiritual reality as we ever will be. Although we'll be continuing becoming more aware of it, we are all incarnations of God. God is what we are. God is not lost. Neither can we be ever. We never need to prepare to meet our God. We're meeting it every day. But we do need to do, and what we will always be doing, is to express more and more of its nature through ourselves. This is the endless pathway. This is the immortal and eternal endeavor to the continued upward spiral of our awareness of God as what we are. A greater knowledge, experience, and expression of God is always our goal, which may and must be ever more fully attained. He's given us our marching orders when he says that, right? He's telling us it all right there, that we're as much of God as there ever is going to be is already within us. We can't have any more of it. And so the only process it is our continual becoming more aware, of expanding it, of letting go of those false beliefs, of letting go of those ideas of who we are, and allowing ourselves to expand in this upward spiral of awareness. And to that awareness is what we're looking at, to be more fully attained. And we have the tools to do that. One of our early inspirations was a wonderful man. He was a divine science minister, which is another branch of our New Thought teachings. His name was Dr. Larry Morris. He had a center in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I would go in and talk with him in my early days when I still lived in Albuquerque. And he wrote a book called Easy Does It. And in there's a story that I love, that I've gone back to over and over again. And it's a story about, it used to be that computers took up huge rooms, back in the last century. My son Connor kind of humbled me the other day. I was telling him something that I used to do in my youth and that was so different than today. And he goes, yeah, things were different back in the 20th century when you were a kid. I'm like, yeah, thanks, honey. But so back in the 20th century, computers were in big rooms. And so there was a giant computer and it suddenly quit working. And everything in the office came to a standstill. And when the technician arrived, he asked what the problem was. And office manager said that the mainframe was working, the terminals were all on, but when they typed on the keyboards, nothing happened. And the technician walked around the mainframe for a few seconds. And then he yelled out, I got it, I got it. And he reached around the back of the mainframe and he just gave it a little tap. And all of a sudden the keyboard operators yelled, it's working, it's working. And the office manager was just so relieved. And he said, you're a genius, you're a genius. How much do I owe you? And the technician said, $600. He said, $600 for 30 seconds of work? I won't pay a cent without an itemized bill. The technician calmly wrote down, tapping the computer console, $20. Knowing where to tap, $580. So, we each have that within us of knowing where to tap, right? That's the gold. And that's the beauty of our techniques and our teachings and this truth of know where to tap, where to find those hidden beliefs and to expand our ideas and practice our teachings. I can't get out of this talk today without quoting my favorite quote by Dr. Holmes. A trained thought is much more powerful than an untrained thought. And that's what we do. We bring ourselves to an awareness of training our thought to turn towards that which we choose, to turn towards the divine truth of who we are, the love of who we are. This is what we teach. And the power of this is that, again, there is that knowingness that something within us can never be harmed, can never be hurt, that is always available to us. Dr. Holmes says this so beautifully when he said, no matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be, there's always something hidden in the inner being that has never been violated. We may stumble, but always there is that eternal voice forever whispering within our ear, that thing which causes the eternal quest, that thing which forever sings and sings. There's something within us that cannot be violated, that is always safe, that is who we are. That divine presence of who we are is such a gift, is such a gift. The third thing I want you to know is that there is power in our collective consciousness to change the world. There's power when we come together and we change our thinking together. That oneness statement that I read to you earlier by the humanities team has a second part. The first part, which I've already read, is oneness is the energy of love that lies within and connects all life, enabling us to recognize ourselves and everything. But it continues and it says, the universe is one being, and we are its cells, all essential and responsible for the well-being of the whole. We're all connected, we're all one. And the thing in our vision statement that I knew I needed to have in there that we all agreed to is that word act. We can't just know it. We can't just say, I know God is all there is and I'm a part of it. Yay, great. You know, we have to then go out in the world and act. We have to bring that out into the world. And so we have to act knowing that this connection, this oneness matters. And once we begin to realize that we have this power within us to change our own personal life, we must act to change the world. I know I've talked to you all about this many times, about the 3 dimensions of social change that is laid out by the great Buddhist scholar, Joanna Macy. She's a great social activist. And the 3 things are, the first one, how you create change. The first thing is you stop the damage. You just stop the damage. The ways that that can happen in social justice and climate change and all kinds of ways. Sometimes people just go out and stop the people from doing the challenging thing, or help the children who are being hurt, or for ourselves, the stop the damage is just stopping the painful, hurtful thinking that we might have used just to create our worlds. And so this is a very important part of changing our world internally and externally, is to find ways to stop the damage. The second way is through structural change, creating laws and disseminating and dismantling systemic racism. This is so important. And the third way is to shift as a shift in consciousness. And this is where we shine, right? By changing our story, by expanding who we are, by always being willing to grow and expand and widen the circle, as I often say, to shift our consciousness. I've shared this story of the shift that I had, of the importance of supporting and fighting for gay marriage. It was back in 1987, I think, when I went to our first summer conference at Asilomar. We used to have a summer conference every year in Monterey, California, at the Asilomar Conference Center. And it was my first one. I had only, I was young and I was really excited about being there. And we had a dance in the evenings. And boy, we can have a lot of fun. As you know, so there was a lot of fun going on at this conference. And so we had this big dance in the evening. And I was struck because there were several same-sex couples there, and they were so relaxed, and they were holding hands, and they were dancing, and they were hugging each other. And everybody was, it was just a normal thing. Now, it was 1987. I had grown up in a very conservative, small rural town. I had never seen this open way of being. And I was also this young romantic girl. And I remember thinking, how would I feel if I had to hide who I loved, if I couldn't hold the hand of the person that I loved, if I couldn't hug them and be proud of them and love them and dance with them. And it was this total consciousness shift for me in that moment, because I saw it. It's so powerful for us when we see stories out in the world that represent something that expands our awareness. That's why I continue to say how important Black History Month is, and women's history, and all these ways of being able to see and picture those that we may not have seen in different settings, so that we can expand ourselves and widen our circle and love each other up. Malcolm Gladwell, in his great book, Blink, which talks a lot about our unconscious biases. He said, you have to constantly be revising your conclusions, constantly revising our conclusions. We can't stay stuck where we are. We have to continue. We have to continue to expand ourselves. And it's so powerful that we can do this, because what we know in our teachings, again, is that it is all the divine, and we're a part of that, and we share this collective consciousness. We share it, and we're influenced by it, and we act from it. And so how powerful it is that, two or more of us that are gathered together to begin to see a new vision, to love ourselves up, to expand our vision and our understanding, to learn our new stories, to be more inclusive and expansive. This is the power of our teaching. This is where we're going. I believe it with every fiber of my being, that our teaching, it heals and empowers the individual, and then it releases us out into the world to heal and empower our communities and our world. And Dr. Holmes knew that. He knew that we couldn't stay stagnant, that we had to be open to the top, that we had to learn and grow and new things. He said, I would desire that in our teaching, there should never be any arrogance, for it always indicates spiritual immaturity to me. Others will arise who will know more than we do. They won't be better or worse. They will be different and know more than we do. Evolution is forward. Evolution is forward. He said that at his last talk in 1959 at Asilomar, Sermon by the Sea, where he knew, Maya Angelou said, when we know better, we do better. And that spirit of our teaching, that understanding that we continue to grow and evolve, is what, frankly, has kept me in our teaching for 35 years. Because every time I get to this edge where I think, oh, it's too limited, I understand that I can go back to these foundational teachings, this foundational truth, that which anchors me, which is there's a divine presence that moves through all things, and I'm a part of that. That's as simple as it is. That foundational teaching will never change, but how it's expressed, how we grow, what we know, how we use it, how we heal ourselves, that changes all the time. And how powerful it is that we have this foundational teaching, which allows us to continue to grow and to continue to expand. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited that I'm a part of a teaching that allows me to continue to grow and to expand. And finally, what I want you to know is that spiritual community is vital. It's vital. The gift of our teaching is truly our organization. That if at some time when Dr. Holmes was alive, people didn't say, hey, we got to figure this out in order to replicate it and duplicate it and bring it out into the world and make sense of it. If someone had to do that, we wouldn't have this organization. We wouldn't have the spiritual community. We wouldn't have the opportunity to be in spiritual community. And it's so important to be in spiritual community. I just made him a doctor. I don't think he's a doctor. This great spiritual teacher, Thomas Hubel, talks about what we need on our spiritual path and what we need in our spiritual growth. And he says it's two things: a sense of belonging. We're communal beings. We must feel like we belong. We must feel like we belong to something bigger, and to even belong in our own bodies and belong to our own communities and be seen and to be known. We must belong. And in that sense of belonging, that we have this foundation. The second thing is a sense of becoming. We have to be becoming, which was what Ernest Holmes was talking about, this evolutionary process, a sense of becoming, that that because we have this foundational place where we can come back and feel safe, we can go out in the world. Thomas Hubel, paints the image of we've all seen it, or if you're a mother, you've experienced it, where you're a little child, you're a little toddler, you go into a new place and they hide behind your leg and they hold on to you. And there's like this sense of belonging. I belong to this person. And then they might look and then they think, oh, that looks interesting over there. Maybe I'll go over there. And they'll kind of, run off, and they'll look back, make sure you're still there. but there's a sense of becoming that I, because I have this safety, because I have this foundational sense, I can go out in the world and become something more and expand more. And this is what our spiritual community does for us, that we can, hold each other safe and warm, and yet we can go out. That's what I'm doing. That's what you all allow me to do, to have this sense of belonging with you, but to know that I needed to go out and expand and become a little bit more out in the bigger world. Dr. Jim Lockhart, in his book, The Beloved Community, says that beloved community is a collection of individuals who are learning how to love themselves, one another, and the universe. This is a collection of individuals. All of us here are collectives of individuals that are all connected, learning how to love ourselves, learning how to love one another, and the universe itself. And he says, however this is languaged, it is the same thing: the creation of the experience of belonging and experiencing the wonders of who we are individually and collectively. We're so blessed to have a spiritual community to do this in. I want to leave you with one of my favorite analogies, again, one you've probably heard, but I get to pull them all out today. It's about the Amazon River. The Amazon River is the largest river in the world. The mouth is 90 miles across. There's enough water to exceed the combined flow of the Yangtze, the Mississippi, and the Nile rivers combined. So much water comes from the Amazon that they have detected its currents 200 miles out into the Atlantic Ocean. One of the ironies of ancient navigation is that sailors in ancient times died for lack of water, caught in the windless waters of the South Atlantic. They were adrift, helpless, dying of thirst. Sometimes other ships from South America who knew the area would come along and call out, "What's your problem? What do you need?" And they would exclaim, "Can you spare us some water? Can you spare us some water? Our sailors are dying of thirst." And from the other ship would come the cry, just lower your bucket. You're in the mouth of the mighty Amazon. Just lower your bucket. And this is what spiritual community does for us. It helps us to remember who we are. It reminds us to lower our bucket to that infinite source of divine that is always, always available to us. It helps us love. Jack Kornfield says that all our spiritual teachings are in vain if we cannot love. We cannot love. So what I want you to know is that you are loved, that we are loved, that it's all love, as we say every week, and that we have done this beautifully together with CSL Leesburg. I'm grateful to our leadership council, to our members, to your new community leader, Charlene Banks, our wonderful minister in training, who has stepped up to continue this beautiful work. And I just love and support you and everybody in this continuing this work that allows me to go forward, knowing that you're safe and loved. Tamara reminded me recently of something my son Connor said when one of his teachers asked what his mom did for a living. And he said something like, "Oh, she helps people be happy." The simpleness of that, when I've been trying to explain to people what I do, I actually love that job description. And it's my greatest hope that I may have served you in bringing some happiness into your life along our journey together. And I certainly know that you have brought me happiness in our time together. Let's take that into prayer, okay? So let's close your eyes. Taking a nice deep breath. And just feel into that divine presence that is, as I say, always available, ever, ever there. It is the divine essence of love. And it's from this awareness, this awakening too, that I become aware of my own divine self, my own divine presence. And it's from this place of this understanding that I'm able to even speak this word of truth, to know that each person here today is their own divine spark of that divine truth, of the love that they are, that goes forth into this world, expressing in the most perfect, powerful, beautiful way in this world. And so I just know that this community called CSL Leesburg, it continues to thrive and grow and prosper and reach new people that are searching, that may not know that they are loved, that they are a divine presence, that they are at the mouth of this mighty, mighty river of the divine truth of purity, that all they need to do is lower their bucket. And CSL Leesburg is that place to do that. So I just know that it expresses in its most perfect way, and every person that has been touched by our center is blessed and lifted up, whether they have moved through and been with us for a little while and gotten what they need and moved on to a different expression, or whether you've been here from the very beginning. It is such a blessing, a blessing. And so I just know that as we go through our days ahead, we hold that place within our hearts of love that CSL Leesburg is, and the gift that it has given to each of us in our lives. And for this, I'm so, so grateful. And just for one more time, I would love for us to just place a hand over the heart and feel into that love. Maybe remember a moment in CSL Leesburg or within my ministry that you have felt that sense of love, that sense of happiness, that sense of completeness, and just allow it to radiate through your very being. And with this awareness, imagine this energy rippling out into your room, your space, like a drop of water in a still lake that allows those ripples to just move out and touch those who are living within your space, within your home, the animals, the plants, the people, the furniture, all of it is all the resonance of love. And allow that energy to move past your home into your neighborhoods. And as we expand our consciousness, as we lift up a little bit, allow it to ripple out through your town or your city, your state, finding places that you might know about that is needing to be lifted up, that is needing that understanding of seeing the truth of who they are. Let us ripple it to in the United States, our state capital, our country's capital, I mean, that Washington, D.C., the place of power, that love radiates there, and the decisions that are made are for the highest and best for all of us, and that they're being served, we're being served by this body of people. And then let's just expand across the whole United States and beyond, circling our world, expanding your vision, just imagining this earth as a pale blue dot, a beautiful shining example of all life itself, all the life that we know. I know there's life out there somewhere else, but right now at this moment, everything I've ever loved, everything I've ever known is on that beautiful, beautiful dot. And so as we leave that love out in the universe, let us breathe back into our space, back into our hearts, and allow that to ground us into our bodies, into our feet, and feel that love again. I'm grateful for this truth and for this opportunity to be in spiritual community. It resides in my heart forever. And with that, I just let it go. I let it be. We all know this together.